Hey guys, this is a case study on the story of Maya Thomas, implementing new instructional approaches in a K-12 setting. This analysis is conducted by Angie Spiegel, Courtney Haynes, and Jonathan Campbell, and I wanted to present this analysis to you in the form of a short video, so I hope you will enjoy. In the case study of Maya Thomas, she interviewed a math teacher by the name of Ruth Ann. Ruth Ann had some concerns regarding her class. As I said, she's a math teacher, and one of the concerns that she had is the students' lack of interest. Either the information that she was teaching was going over their heads, or they just were not paying attention at all, sleeping through it, not doing their homework. Now, she did have some that were actually achievers and doing very well, but not all of them. So because of this, she had some ideas of things that she wanted to do differently. Now, the way her current setup is that she is a teacher that stands at the front of the classroom and teaches like a standard generic type teaching would do. She stands up there, and like with most all math classes, they are expected to learn a bunch of formulas, memorization. And because of this, some students would excel and others would not. So some just kind of basically turned them off from the very beginning. Now, Ruth Ann teaches in an area that would be considered a farming environment. As you can see, here's a picture of some students doing some farming. And not only is it from a small community of farmers, but it's also starting to change with the types of people that are in that area, with more like a college parents that went to college, so students have kind of a different mindset with what school is. So that's what makes it really tough to try to find where that balance is with the students that she has. Now, one of the things that seems to be an issue is that we don't ever want this to be our motto. The only way to close achievement gaps is to slow down the fast learners. Obviously, we do not want to do that. We want to be able to bring all of the students in pretty much the same level as far as achievement is concerned. So we've got to try to find a way to help Miss Ruth Ann get past some of these problems and figure out a way to make math more fun and more successful for her class. Now, one of the things that she did find out too about her students is that often these students would have to be home alone in the afternoons due to either their parents working outside the home or maybe even farming. But that obviously is an unfortunate event because students are left alone to their own whatever it is that they decide to do, and there's oftentimes not parents in the home to supervise them or to help them with their homework in the afternoon. So that means that either the homework doesn't get done at all or the student struggles with it and doesn't really understand what they're doing. So one of the things that Miss Ruth Ann wanted to consider is that she has some laptops, some computers and laptops that she wanted to be able to incorporate into her classroom and make it more of a lab setting rather than just the standard stand up in front of the classroom and teach type of setting. So she was trying to figure out a way to do that, and so Maya Thomas is like she's a contractor that comes in and helps teachers with reorganizing their classroom structure and to try to help them come up with better ways of teaching their classes. So the first thing that Maya did was she came in, the first thing she wanted to do was do some interviewing. She wanted to know not only what the teachers' concerns were, but she also wanted to know what the concerns were of other people. So the first thing that she did obviously was interview the teacher and to get all the information that she could from Miss Ruth Ann, and got down the information that we just talked about the different types of kids that come to that classroom and some of the concerns that she thought from a teacher's perspective that may have been the cause of some of the deficiencies that she was having issues with. Not only as far as the gaps too, her class was considered one of the lower achieving classes, and so it was almost like no matter what she did, the kids were always kind of behind and were always hard time getting caught up on just the basics. And she wanted to find a way to get past that. So not only did she interview the teacher, but she also interviewed the students themselves. She picked several students from the high achieving 7th grade students and the low achieving 7th grade students, and then she also picked some students from the low achieving 6th grade students, so she would kind of have an idea of what to expect with the students that were going to be coming in. And excuse me just a minute, I'll close up some of these other ones that are causing it to go slow here. Okay, so after she performed all these interviews, she had a little bit better idea what was happening. The last one that she wanted to interview was the administrator of the school. The administrators, of course, are the ones that kind of have the overall say of maybe what's being taught. And there were some good points that were brought up in this interview, specifically that Maya, or Miss Ruth Ann, had the liberty to change how she taught the class, but that she still had to follow specific Common Core standards as far as the state requirements. So the administrator wanted to make sure and point that kind of thing out. So now one of the things that in our analysis of this, the first thing that it says was to critique the steps that Maya took to identify the needs in the case, including the collection and analysis of data, and what are some things that she did well, and what would you suggest to improve her practice. As a group, we unanimously felt that the interviewing process was definitely a positive. We felt like she did a good job of picking the people that she interviewed. However, at the same time, we feel like there's other people that she did not interview that she should have. For instance, parents. We feel like she should have gotten them more involved than what she did. Maybe I know that sometimes parents are not 100% clear on exactly what the materials are that are being taught, but if she wants to change the way that she's teaching things, it might be more, I guess, might make the parents more nervous if there's children are all of a sudden coming home with completely different math things than what they're used to seeing. So we just felt like one of the things one of her interviewing people should have been the parents of some of the students. Some other people that we felt like she should have interviewed, we felt like she should have possibly visited some of the other schools in the area to see maybe if they were having issues, and maybe get some suggestions from them of things that they did that worked, and instead of just trying to start from an empty slate. So those were some of the things that we felt like she should have done to improve her practice. And another thing that she did not do in the initial evaluation was she did not evaluate the classroom from what we could tell. So, was Miss Ruth Ann's classroom boring? Did she have any kind of teaching materials? Was there anything that stimulated the children or the students as they came into the classroom each day? Or did she have a classroom that was more exciting, something that the students could look forward to? Was it a classroom set up to where there was open communication? And in this case, you can see the desks are arranged with small group settings, or they can be implemented as far as a full classroom setting as well. And there's plenty of room to where the students could move around from station to station, and maybe work with students in other areas, or even with the areas along the back of the wall. And of course, you don't want to have just boring white walls either. It's important that you have a lot of visual aids to get students excited about math. Colors and patterns and things like that are more of a stimulant, and it gets students at least thinking about things. And so, instead of just standing in front of the classroom and just regurgitating formulas all day long and expecting them to just memorize all of those, it's a good idea to try some other alternatives. So the next thing, what are some of the options that Maya can explore to support the learning environment that Ruth Ann requested? Excuse me. So Miss Ruth Ann was requesting, like I said, that she had some PCs that she wanted to try to implement. She wanted to set her room up in more of a lab type environment. So some of the things that Maya, if she didn't really talk about it in the case study, but I know it did say that she reflected on this information over, I think, the course of maybe 3 weeks. But it doesn't really say where she may have gathered her information from. So we definitely think that she needed to maybe bring in some examples rather than just listening to Ruth Ann and doing these interviews. Maybe and she had a few suggestions, but a lot of the questions and suggestions that Maya made at the end of this case study, Ruth Ann even had more questions about those. Well, if we do that, then what about this? Or if we do that, what about this? You know, what are the administrators going to think? What are the parents going to think? How are the students going to respond to that? Do you even think that they're going to, embrace this idea and even support it? Because she was already having trouble with getting the students to do the work at all. So what makes her think that the suggestions that Maya is making is going to get the students excited at all? So some of the things that Maya could have done would even to have been to maybe have, like I said, some real-world examples from other schools, from other teachers, and maybe even some materials, maybe some web links or some books or something that she could have brought in that would demonstrate some other opportunities and some examples of things that Ruth Ann could do in her classroom. So what are some of the critical factors that Maya needs to attend to if this effort is to be successful? Well, obviously, if the students are not going to be, if at this point the students are not too excited about coming to math, then obviously they're going to have to find a way to make that exciting. And one of the first things that we felt like she should do is to make plans to have some parent meetings. And I think this should be in a group setting so that she can maybe just announce to the entire group what the concerns are and some of the suggestions that they want to do for improvements, and give the parents an opportunity to ask questions and to make some suggestions themselves and to get them involved. It also is a good idea maybe to even talk to the students and ask the students, well, what do you think we should do? What are some suggestions of things that you think that we could do to make math more fun? Well, obviously, in my opinion, in our group's opinion, it's more fun, I guess you could say, to learn math if you're doing it in real-world examples. So some of the examples that I found online would be like, math is everywhere. No matter where you go, you're going to usually find some form of math. Even in this scenario, you're looking at icing for cakes. You have fractions and you have weights, or ounces and grams and such on here. And this is just an example of a board that another school made. If it'll open up, hang on just a moment. Okay, so here's an example of a board that another school made, which I thought was a great idea, and it gives the students a chance to become a part of it themselves. So in this case, you can see that the students drew pictures. I guess they basically had to look around for places where math can be found. So here's a baseball stadium. Looks like maybe soccer or tennis or something. I think it is soccer. And there's a clock and something to do maybe with recycling. I can't tell what some of them are, but as you can see, these are student examples. Getting the students involved makes them feel like they have partial ownership, and it makes them more willing to try something new. Here's a great idea with using it for sports, especially right now with it being Super Bowl weekend. This would have been a great idea of some type of a project that could be done to bring math into the classroom. Some of the other ideas that our group came up with is like, what about if they had money, or what if they had a business? Give the students fake money, monopoly money, or whatever kind of money, and have them teach them how to budget, how to balance a checkbook, how to do an expense worksheet, things like that. Those are all great ways to use math. Here's one that a student could probably easily come up with themselves. Stayed up all night calculating how many blocks it would take to build this house in Minecraft. And she says, well, I thought you hated math. And he says, well, this isn't math, this is fun. So if you can find a way to do math and make it fun, it doesn't seem like such a burden. This is one I especially like, where, of course these are all cartoons, but these are definitely things you can think about. So what did you do in class today? I ate donuts while I was learning about the torus. Well, what did you do in math class today? Well, I ate Reese's peanut butter cups while calculating volumes of frustums. What'd you do in class today? Well, I ate Pringles while studying hyperbolic paraboloids. Well, and then the principal comes up and says, well, 7 more students enrolled in your class. And the teacher says, wow, now I need to buy more Kit Kat bars for my Prismoid lesson. So obviously, there's things that you can do to make it fun and make students actually want to come to your classroom. And depending on how the school is set up, an example of something they could also do is actually have a math tournament, which they do have math competitions I'm aware of. But if you can make it fun, in this case it's more like an Olympic event, and it says it's a multi-day review of the entire 7th grade. So if you could incorporate all of the classrooms into this, and they would realize that there's some type of a competition involved with prizes, that definitely I think would be more tuned to wanting to learn something. So those are just some great examples of things that can be done from a project standpoint that would get students more involved. There are other things as well. For instance, there are websites where you can go to get information, and let me see if I can find it where it went. Okay, here it is. So in this case, this is what they call a doodle book, and so you can see that it is a book of scribble notes, but in this case it's converting measurements, and it's in color in black and white, and it might look a little childish, but even to a 7th grader, they would probably very much enjoy doing something like this a whole lot better than just taking pages and pages of notes and writing down a bunch of formulas. And if you look online, there's all kinds of places that you can go to get lots of information and lots of ideas. Here's a project source that you can actually already filtered it by subject matter. So here you can say you can run a business. In this case, they investigate phone service providers to find the plan that best suits their family's needs and finances. Turning or cashing in your car. Let's see. Here's a philanthropist agrees to purchase and donate a 3-acre field for the community stipulation. Design proposals for the field are present to the city council. Let's see what else. I thought there was some really good ones here. 6th grade students created this report. Shows what do the dissolved oxygen levels tell us about the water quality. My restaurant project. Here you can create menus, grant letters, commercials, multimedia presentations. Anyways, all kinds of choices here. And as you can see, all of these actually do, not all of them, but most of these particular examples do meet the Common Core standards. If you click on that and it expands it, it will actually tell you what parts of the project meet which parts of the Common Core standards. So here's a great resource that she could use to actually come up with some ideas. So back to our presentation. So those are some of the critical factors that she needs to attend to, and that is finding ideas, getting some examples, getting the parents' buy-in, and of course she also needs to get the administrators' buy-in to make sure that whatever ideas they come up with are going to meet the needs of the Common Core standard. So consider how the work with Ruth Ann could be used as a starting place for school-wide mathematics reform. Does that change the way Maya should work with Ruth Ann and the other math teachers? Does it change the options they should consider? Well, obviously in this particular scenario, the only person that she's even spoken with is Ruth Ann. From the case study that we saw, it doesn't appear that she actually met with any other teachers, but we do feel like she needs to look at the school as a whole, the school where Ruth Ann actually works, and look at the other schools in the area and see which ones are successful. And you know, there may be some skeptical teachers out there that said, oh, this is definitely not going to work, but once they've got a good outline in place and maybe try it out even, you know, maybe not only does she need the parent buy-in and the school board's buy-in, she needs the other teachers to support her as well. Maybe there's other teachers that have already implemented some of these ideas even in Ruth Ann's school, and Ruth Ann just hasn't even asked anyone about it. Maybe she's been embarrassed to, or didn't really know the right kinds of questions to ask. So if Maya would just go around and check with some other people, then it would make it easier for her to actually be able to get acceptance about this new idea across the board, not just in Ruth Ann's class, but with everyone. All right, so how might the community and the parents influence the success of this effort? How might Ruth Ann tap into various resources available in the community, and how might that affect success? Well, there again, if they don't meet with the teacher or with the parents and let the parents know what is happening, I think there's going to be a lot of backlash from the parents, because it's going to be something completely different probably than what the parents learned when they went to school, and that could have definitely a negative effect on how it's perceived by them whenever they see the students doing other things. So, I mean, if I knew that my son was in a math class and I'm expecting him to learn how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide, but now all of a sudden he's telling me that he's got some kind of a project to do in math that's going to require that he create a business, I may not understand how that has anything at all to do with math. So it could be just the same as the mindset with the kids. The parents need to be taught, yes, this does include math, and here are the things that the student's going to be doing that pertains to math with this particular project, and these are the functions that he or she is going to be learning in this process. So, and I think having parents come in, I think we as a group mentioned that having visitors come into the classroom, maybe say someone that works in a restaurant, or someone that owns an accounting business, or works in accounting, someone that works, I don't know, at the baseball stadium, just anybody that has a job that can come and speak to the classroom and show them or tell them, describe to them or demo to them how math is used in their specific job. We felt like that would be a great way to get the parents involved and to get the students excited about it, and to realize that yes, math is fun, yes, math is important, yes, I will use math after I get out of school. So, do you want your classroom to sit around like this, thinking, okay, well, this student's doing their work, this one's thinking about nothing at all, this one's thinking about talking on the phone and eating, this one's worried about the girl up front because he's crazy about her, and she's thinking, okay, what can I do to get rid of this guy? Do you want that in your classroom? We definitely don't want anybody to be held back. We want all of our students to be successful. So we as teachers have to look outside the box. We have to think of other ideas, new ways of doing things, and realize that, yeah, they do still need the basic skills in math. Well, let's see if there's a more creative way to teach our students these kinds of things. So instead of having the class that I showed you at the beginning of this presentation, we all need to shoot for this type of a class that says, yay, I came to math class today and I did this, and I'm proud of myself, and I'm going to enjoy coming to class every single day. Because what teacher doesn't want to be the fun teacher? If this wasn't math class, you would be my favorite teacher. We don't want that to be us. We want us to be the teacher that they do want to come to. So let's work together and try to find a way to help Miss Ruth Ann change the way that she teaches, and help her to find some new creative ways of doing that. So that is our analysis of the Maya Thomas case study. There are a few additional questions at the end of our case study about using implications for ID practice. So discuss how characteristics of an organization affect the outcomes of the needs assessment. Obviously, if an organization is not designed well, or it could just be that it depends on who all is involved in the organization, how much support do they have, and all of that can affect the needs. I mean, the students might need one thing, the adults, the administrators are saying, well, they need this. Well, you got to try to find a balance in between what the students need, what the parents need, what the teacher needs, and what the administrators need. Find a balance between those. Discuss how factors such as culture and resource availability affect change management. Obviously, if you're from a smaller town, you may not have as much money to be able to buy a lot of new stuff, so you may have to just get really creative and do some homegrown things. And since this is a smaller farming community, we were thinking that there should be plenty of projects that the students could do outside of the school as for homework. with regards to some of the businesses in the area, and that wouldn't require any extra money in the classroom. That would just be requiring some legwork and some homework on the students' part. To what extent should a change manager determine the direction that a change should go? Who owns that process, and how should the needs of the other adopters, such as learners affected by the adoption decisions, be addressed? So again, in this case, obviously she's going to have to make sure that she meets the needs of the Common Core standards as well as the needs of her students. One of the issues that they had was the books that she was using. It didn't really say if she had any say-so in the book that was chosen for her classroom, but she did mention that it was lacking in some of the Common Core standard requirements. So I definitely think that the teachers herself and other teachers need to be involved when it comes to picking out the resources that are used in the classroom. And if they can meet the needs of the administrator of the state as well as meeting the needs of their classroom, everybody will be more prone to use it and be positive about it. So what are some ways to move people from one stage of adoption to the next? Well, you just need to get their buy-in. You need to get everybody's buy-in, let them see the positive, the outcome of it. And if you don't ever move anybody, if you don't ever make any changes, then things are never going to change. We are creatures of habit typically, and however we've always done it is the way we're going to always do it. So it's important to see that there are other options out there, and if you have the opportunity to show them and demonstrate to them a success story, that would definitely go a long way in getting people to move from one stage of adoption to the other. So I hope you have enjoyed this presentation, and if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact any of us via email, and that will be it for now. Thank you.